Welcome to Sunday mornings at the Marxist Library. A quick note before we start. This session is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube with the link to our website, ICSSmarx.org, within the next few days. Again, welcome everyone to Sunday mornings at the Marxist Library. This weekly program was hosted at the Nebel Proctor Marxist Library located in Oakland, California, USA. Since the pandemic started, we have been meeting every Sunday on Zoom. So in fact, we should be saying good morning, good afternoon, and good evening because we now have attendees from throughout the United States and even from around the world. My name is Alan Miller, and I'm a member of the program committee that organizes Sunday morning at the Marxist Library sessions. And I would like to start off by saying that we always welcome input, feedback, and suggestions for topics and speakers. You can sign up for email notification for our meetings and contact us through our website at ICSSmarx.org. We want to remind everyone that this is a comradely forum for political discourse and debate. As such, we ask that you show respect to our participants and to the moderator of today's session. Please note that the opinions expressed are those of the speaker and participants. They do not necessarily represent those of the ICSS or Marxist Library. Okay, what we want to do today is welcome our speakers. Today, our speaker is Mehmet Bayram, who is a journalist and political activist who has been visiting Turkey and is going to give us a report back on what's going on, what he's seeing there. He's going to be speaking today about giving us basically an update. So why don't you go ahead, Mehmet, take it away.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to present what's going on in Turkey. I've been visiting Turkey for the last, I think, 3 months now. And I was here last year, and so much dynamism and so much change. And yet, as much as change happens, everything seems to stay the same. And so today I will be kind of focusing, I will be changing my format. I used to go in and present a lot of history, and I believe I've done that in a way to lead all to today's program. I don't think I'm going to be able to cover everything that's happening because it's impossible. It will take weeks just to scratch the surface. So we are going to be looking at things that are happening. Since I've already brought in the historical context, especially last February, I believe, was it 16 or 19 of this year, we scratched the surface of the very new things that were happening, including the earthquake, and we just left it there. But the history is there, and I would really recommend, in order to understand several discussions that we're going to have today, to go back and look at those to fill in the historical context. Turkey is, like I said, dynamic. And every year that I come in, I get scared more because it is in a downward spiral, and it is evolving into a Sharia regime. And I have done some additional wording on this presentation. Especially, I started using Islamofascism. And not only that, but a new discussion has emerged in Turkey saying that Turkish regime is actually an apartheid regime. This is very significant. The accusation of apartheid is actually very, very new. It's like less than a month old. And some historians who have been working on the Armenian genocide are now showing that the definition of apartheid that we used in South Africa and maybe, United States in its, in its slavery and those eras, is definitely applicable to the Turkish state. This is not only a historical point, but it is alive and well today. And that's the reason why I spent a lot of time in the past talking about the history. Because as one historian says, the biggest mistake you can do on history is to assume that those events happened in the past. So those have all come to fruition in Turkey as apartheid, racism, genocide, fascism in the Islamic sense, Islamofascism, have all come together. And that's what we face in Turkey today. But these are not the actual movers of the regime. There is a material basis of why Turkey is like this. I am not going to say that Islam is the only reason why Islamofascism is in place in Turkey today. We can see that those who are promoting the most pure sense, in the most pure sense, Islam and its values, they themselves would, at the drop of a hat, if you showed them enough money, would definitely come to the side of atheists, Jews, Christians, or Buddhists. So it is not, the driving force is not Islam, but Islam is the way that fascism has taken on today. We had fascisms before. We had fascism that has been continuous for nearly 100 years now, with changing formats. In 1970s, in 1980s, the fascism was racial fascism on Turkish race. But with the United States adopting the moderate Islam, so-called moderate Islam in the region as its preferred regime, those old fascists have simply quickly turned into Islamofascists. So it is not the belief in religion that drives this, but it is the relationship of neocolonialism. It is the relationship of capitalism in the age of imperialism. And I am ready to discuss that this is mostly not a choice. But I know I'm being a little bit historical determinist, but being born as a neo-colonial country dependent on imperialist relationships was going to bring Turkey to today with the events that we're going to discuss about. There wasn't much choice. There wasn't alternatives. This is what neocolonialism is. This is what imperialism is. And since I've been here, I've been having a lot of discussions with my Turkish friends, progressives or not. And one thing I see is that the hope is lost. The hope is lost. There is not a single person who looked me in the eye and say, look, if we did this and this and this, hey, we are going to be pretty well off. They said, this is gone. It's finished. I personally don't believe that. As a Marxist, I can't. But the way that we are here, why we are here, is a typical example of a country born into imperialist relationships as a dependent client and nothing else. This is what imperialism does. It comes in and it dictates to you who is going to rule you, who is going to give the best to imperialism, how exploitation is going to happen, where your country's position is going to be in the world. And it takes, and then comes back and takes more, while you keep on dreaming that with elections, things are going to change. Or if only you had a couple more factories, or you owned the factories that are now owned by foreign capital, that you would be in a different position. I don't think that happens. First of all, that's not a Marxist point. That's why when I ask people, what do you consider as being liberated? Nobody has an answer. I have not yet seen one single person who clearly identified, what if we got rid of the current regime of AKP, of Erdogan? What the liberation would mean? Because they do not consider, they do not have hope, and they do not consider socialism as an alternative. That's why socialism right now is so far away that it doesn't even enter the hopes of people. People have given up. People are disillusioned. And people keep on asking why, even in Africa, countries where the Arab Spring happened, in Egypt, in everywhere else, people had enough, and they stood up in situations far less worse than the Turkish situation right now. But people keep asking, no, we're done with. Nobody's moving a finger. That's not entirely true. There are resistances. There are, revolutionary movements. There are people's, not taking it, especially women's movement is leading the way. Kurds, minorities, those people who have no luxury, workers in many places, not all, who do not have the luxury to sit and take it like a man of this fascist onslaught, are resisting. So things that I should say at the last, I'm saying it right now, is that there is a way. There has to be a way, but the way that Turkish people, Kurdish people, the people of Turkey are going to resist needs a subjective factor, which is the creation of a working class party. And since people don't have this idea, they are disillusioned, they are hopeless, but the potential of the working class definitely is there. It is for us to find it, organize it, and work on it, because we don't have an alternative, and that potential exists. But it's not easy. It's not going to be easy. In my previous presentations, I tried to show that, the historical context that we are in is making it very, very hard. And the historical context, I am, trying to understand more about this, is that why does Egypt get up? Why does, the Middle Eastern countries that we never expected are on the street and do colored, maybe, revolutions? But Turkey is like dead. Nothing happens. Small things happen, yes, but those should be the subject of socialists, of revolutionaries, and we should have learned our lesson, which we have not. We have failed. We have failed. We have left the arena to fascists, maybe our doing, but mostly in 1981 coup with the United States support, the left was crushed, not only organizationally, but ideologically. We have to carry the burden of this, learn from those lessons, and we have to stop. I'm one of the guys who have done that, but we should stop talking about the good old days of when the revolutionary movement was at its peak and we were doing this and successful. Yes, that's good, very nice, very nostalgic. We'll drink over it. But the situation has changed and we don't have much time. After the last election, which could be the last election that Turkey sees, Turkey is just free falling into Sharia under Islamic Islamofascism, and not much hope is there if we continue doing it the way that we are doing. So there needs to be a lot of changes that happen. As Luxemburg says, it's either socialism or barbarism. We are living in barbarism. When we came here a couple of months ago, and last month actually, we rented a car and I was able to fill the tank for 780 Turkish liras. The same car, same tank. Just a few days ago, I was able to fill for $1,250, from 780 to 1,250. Turkish people didn't know what hit them with the inflation. The inflation was bad before the elections in June, but after the elections, it's just rampant. People have never seen life, never in Turkey. I've never seen a life like this. Turkey is an agricultural country producing, melons and watermelons were something that you didn't even turn to look. They were so abundant. Now, watermelons are being sold for, with slices. The other day on the TV, a progressive lawyer, he's a lawyer, was speaking. And he said that he has not tasted watermelons yet this year because he just can't afford it. The bread has shot up. Nobody's, can afford cheese, milk. Forget meat. Meat is now just unreachable. And the government lies, and lies more every day, because the 95% of the media is in the hands of the Turkish government. Let me repeat, 95% of media is in the hands of the government. They are being hand-fed. And there is only like 3 or 4 opposition media outlets, and they are under constant attack. Just Tele 1 the other day got shut down for 7 days, and all its 5% of its revenue will be taken by the government because an anchor dared to say that the Kurdish leader Abdullah Öcalan was being held against Turkish laws in isolation, against the world, against all kinds of things. This is torture. And he said, what we are doing is illegal in Turkish law. Now he's in prison for saying this. They took him right out after his show. The police showed up. As he shut his show down, they took him, and for over a month, he's in prison. Why? For praising terrorism, for aiding terrorist organizations, for saying that we should abide by Turkish law. That's all he said. All he said. We should abide by Turkish law. This is typical textbook definition of colonial type fascism. The way that this colonial type fascism works is that you have both the fascist dictatorship terrorizing the people, but on the other hand, you do have the democratic institutions that are still active for a show. That's why when the elections happened in June, I wasn't that much hopeful, or even, it's something else. I'm not going to go too much into the elections because it is a sideshow. It is definitely just to keep people like the parliament in Turkey, which is a sideshow. Elections did show some disappointing and also positive elements. But the disappointing part, I think I showed that in my slides that's coming up, is that there was I think that was more significant, having on February 6, 2023, an earthquake that happened. It was very significant. Some say 150,000 people perished. More than 3 million homes were demolished. And the government was not there, the state was not there. And the first few days, it was the revolutionaries, it was the progressives, it was the communists, socialists, and some opposition, of course. They were the ones who went to the area. The state actually was there. What had happened is that the proceedings for an earthquake preparedness had worked. When the earthquake happened, in few minutes, the military was sent out to guide, to guard, to help people, put up tents, water, this, that. But 2 hours later, Erdogan, the president, the head of AKP, woke up and the news of the earthquake was given to him. And he asked, what's happening? And they said, oh, we're executing all the steps and everything's working well. The military is out there. He hit the roof. He cursed at them. And he immediately ordered every military operation to come back to their barracks. Because he's afraid, he's paranoid that if you let the army, the state, go in, they may stage a coup against them. He's scared of his shadow. He goes to Friday prayers with 700 bodyguards. They close down the streets and maybe 25, 30 cars full of armed men accompany him while the helicopters hover overboard so that he can make it to the Friday prayers. So the state was there. But the way that the state is organized shows you that it is not for the people. This is a basic Marxist analysis of the state. State is an organizer, an enforcer of monopoly of violence for the ruling classes. But this has a different taking in Turkey, because state has always historically been considered as a very, like a religious, mythological figure. And this is one of the weaknesses of the opposition in Turkey. And this is one of the reasons why the elections were lost, is that in Turkey, no matter what you're doing, if you need a cover, all you have to say is, this is for the benefit of the state. That's it. As we say in Turkish, the running waters stop. You have the opposition, the government, you have the secret organizations, you have the gangs, everybody come together to protect the state. So the Workers' Party of Turkey actually was very interesting. They sent two of their elements, and I had the videos, is that saying, wait a minute, we should start reconsidering how state looks. There is nothing mythical about this, and we should reconsider. Actually, it is okay to be an enemy of the state. Enemy of the state, because state is not helping people. It is the leftists, the communists, the revolutionaries are helping the people in earthquake. And in this situation, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be, protecting the state. And the next guy that talked similar, saying, look, nothing's happening, whatever. He got elected from that region to be the MP in the parliament. But immediately he was arrested. He's an elected official, and he's immune. Let me repeat, he's immune to arrests, detains, and all the stuff. He cannot be prosecuted, but he has been arrested, and he's in prison. And the government just says, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? He's there, yeah. So this is kind of a background on how democracy works, and how elections actually happen. You can guess how elections would happen in a situation like this, where there is no justice, where there is no democracy, where there is no independent people's movements, but only the dictatorship of the capitalists and imperialists. Monopoly capital reigns. And so it would be futile to look at even the election results and try to come up with results. Look, there was a run-up in the election, the first one and the second one. Thousands of polling stations that had previously, just 20 days ago, 30 days ago, had voted for the opposition, have supposedly, in 1 month, changed all their minds, and they voted for the government. Go figure it out. This happened, these happened, especially in the polling booths, where the opposition promised that they will have guards and they will have observers and everything, and they didn't. They didn't. And those thousands of polling stations, they promised they would object to this and they would have a recount. This was about a week after the election, and nobody ever heard anything else from that objections or, recount requests and so on. So life goes on. That's why considering elections as a turning point or a significant event in determining the path that Turkey is taking would not be a very wise analysis. And let me tell you, in Islamofascism, the way that the things work is not by, just beating on the heads of the people, but also by conquering their minds. And these mines that have been taken, it's not just directly, but the education system in Turkey has collapsed. It's finished. There is no education in Turkey. You cannot, and this is my, again, personal observation. You cannot sit down with somebody and just talk like a regular, two people talking. The logic is gone. The mentality is gone. The rationale is gone. You cannot follow A to B to C. They have destroyed that. How did they did it? It's very interesting. Sociologist Cihan Tugal in Berkeley, he has a book, the fall of the Turkish model. Turkish model as a moderate Islam was presented to the world by the United States, by European Union, the whole world as, okay, fine, the final, this is the best. This is the best. I mean, perfect. This is perfect. You have moderate Islam and you have the development, you have the education, you have the production, you have the export, and it all collapsed in 2013. Because neoliberalism itself is not sustainable, is not, you cannot keep it up for a long time. What can you do? Then in countries like Turkey, you do what Turkey does. You borrow, and you squander it because you cannot do production, cannot. You are not allowed to do production. You borrow and you build. You build things that are not really necessary, like airports, like Kütahya Airport. You give the imperialist corporations a promise that 1 million people will use the airport, and you give the management of that airport to them, but you give them the guarantee, Turkish state guarantee, that if they have less than 1 million passengers, the difference would be paid by the Turkish state. And then about, I think, 300,000 people use it. So 700,000 passengers' expenses are paid by Turkish state. And then this is not enough. You build other airports in Çanakkale, in Balıkesir, in Tokat, in so many places. 4 airports I can find somewhere here, is that not one single airplane landed or flew out of these airports. Not one, just not even a single airplane used it in 2022. All expenses paid by the government. So then, isn't it stupid? Why would somebody do this? Because you have capitalists, what I call the lumpen bourgeoisie. They don't produce. They get, there are 5 corporations that are in the world, they are the number 1 that have landed government projects. And in return, you support the government by giving part of your profits to the foundations that are led by Erdogan's son, Erdogan's wife, Erdogan's daughter, Erdogan's other son. You give your profits of building airports that you're never gonna use, you give it back to them, and those foundations do not have any government accountability. What do these foundations do you think? They come to the United States, They buy Muhammad Ali's ranch. They build in Manhattan, they build a skyscraper for students, Turkish students to use it as a dormitory. But these don't go just in the economic, arena. Corruption is the very basic glue that holds these, the lumpen bourgeoisie. They could not survive without state, without the government. They are not businessmen. And this is the defining factor of fascism in Turkey, is that your establishment politicians and the gang leaders and the party leaders and the businessmen have joined forces together, and they have established the system of looting and the religious organization, the looting of the country. It is said that Erdogan's personal wealth in United Kingdom alone is $26 billion. $26 billion, his personal secret funds. Binali Yıldırım, Erdogan's prime minister, is said to be richer than the Queen of England. His son owns tens of shipping containers, ships. Erdogan's sons are in petroleum transportation business from Iraq, from Syria. Thieves. They steal oil and they sell it. Do you call these bourgeoisie? Not in the definition of that Marx was giving, for sure. But they definitely fit into the definition of Lenin's imperialism, where the finance capital monopolies have taken over, and they even control the likes that I've been telling you for the profit of imperialist corporations. You cannot do this by only breaking heads. That's the way that the colonial type fascism works. You have to take over the brains. And I said, education is gone, it's finished. I can show you videos of these students, high school level students, from the schools that have been established by AKP, religious schools, which are taken over every high school, every middle school. They don't even know how many days in a year. They don't know how many weeks in a month. They don't know the capital of their country. But it's okay, because they are not supposed to. They are not being pushed there for production. The lumpen bourgeoisie is not stupid. Who's gonna do production in the age of imperialism? Come on, guys. All you do is you rape, you steal, you appropriate, and then you run. There's no time for what? Stupid production. Come on. The privatization and looting of the government, assets by the government is unprecedented. Unprecedented. The other day, I don't know if it was heard in the United States, but in a silo, grain silo that was loading the ships, it exploded. Actually, now Russia is claiming that the silo that was being used could have been a ground for sending weapons to Ukraine. we'll never know. But others are saying that the operations in those silos were so, I don't know, not professional, amateurish, that in a hot day, when you pour down the grains, they from the friction, they explode and they go. Well, these silos were privatized, and those who privatized it are renting it back to the government at the price that they bought it for. They didn't want security measures. They didn't want, people's lives to be, they didn't protect the workers. As soon as this exploded, Turkish minister said, "Oh, thank God the ships are safe." People died, but we were concerned about the ships. Again, you take over people's minds and you teach them and you make them believe that anything the government does is bad, and the only alternative is the private sector. I'll give you the example of the Turkish railways. We wanted to take a trip to the east, where Kars is and those places. People laughed and said, there are sleeper cars. They said, forget it, sleeper cars don't run in summer. Wait a minute, that's the peak tourist season, no? Yes, but we don't run it. Oh, okay. Then you have the other cars where you can make your seat into a bed. So we said, okay, we'll go with those. They said, sorry, for 4 or 5 months, you cannot even think about getting a ticket. Why? Oh, because the tourist corporations buy them and give it to their tourists. And you can't find. So I talked to the railway official and said, then this is the tourism and there is demand. So why don't you put more cars? No, we can't do that. Why? There is demand. Then I found out that in Istanbul, in prime areas, the railway owns more than 160,000 meters squares of land. And this land has not been privatized. No, it wasn't even privatized. Corporations came, they built their factories on it, and they're working 24/7. They even built a gas station. These are not paying rent. These are not, paying anything. As long as you are close to the government and you pay back, 26 billion in UK doesn't come that easy. You have to pay back. Then you can get those lands for free. You can do anything you like. You can even rape and kill. We live in Bodrum. About 5 miles from here is the marina. The marina was being managed by Mehmet Bayram. He used to be the chief of police. Then he used to be the interior minister. And he provided fake IDs. I don't know how fake it is. The government issues them, but the government issues you fake IDs with different names than who you are, several actually, to the terrorists. The terrorists that were used in assassinations around the world. Not only the terrorists, but their families too. So he resigned. Then he became the interior minister. But after he retired, he comes here and he takes over There is even a word now for taking over businesses. It's called settlement in Turkish, çökmek. They come in, they show guns, and people know what they can do, and they take over the marina, one of the richest in the Middle East. You should see the yachts there. Each one is $100–200 million worth yachts. And his son also became the high official, managing that marina. His son is an MP in the parliament. His son is involved in rape and murder. His girlfriend was seen with a brutal, facial and body, bruises. They asked her what happened. She said, "Oh, I fell down, and that's what happened." A couple of days later, she went to the gendarmerie and asked for protection from the son of this police chief, the interior minister. And a couple of days later, of course, the gendarmerie, took her complaint and sent her back. A couple of days later, her body was found at home. And a state helicopter came and lifted this guy's son from there. And a journalist found the deposition that she had given to the gendarmerie on how she was threatened and was going to be killed by this guy. Now the journalist is under investigation for revealing state secrets. She's facing prison time. A couple of days ago, in a TV station, 3 or 4 opposition TV stations, Tele 1, an anchor said that, I mentioned, the Kurdish leader should not be under torture. He's in prison, and his TV station is under scrutiny for 7 days. They closed that. Then there are other journalists who have been showing the relationship of businesses and the corruption. For this book, 2 journalists, one is the Barış Pehlivan. The state is asking 158 years for publishing this book. This is a banned book, by the way. 158 years. Because he exposed the relationship of the businesses and what was going on. And they found the reason is that he gave the name of intelligence officers who were killed in Libya, operations in Libya. How many people know that Turkey is holding operations in Libya? They were killed. Their bodies were brought back to the country. Funerals are being held. The journalist mentioned their name. You just exposed Turkish state secrets. So he spent time in prison, and he was given a parole. He should not have any new cases brought against him. So he's just a writer. He's writing, and he's being very, very careful. But then the government opened another bullshit case. So now he's back in prison. He's back in prison. He's going to serve 8 more years. Selahattin Demirtas, a Kurdish leader of the HDP opposition party, which changed its name to Green Left Party in the elections, because they were shutting down the opposition party. So especially if you are Kurdish, I mean, Kurds support you, then so they changed the name. But anyway, since I believe 2016, he was arrested with the co-chair of the party. That party is very unique because they say that women should have equal access in the party as men. So whenever there is a man on a position, he has to have a co-chair of a woman. So he was arrested, his co-chair woman was arrested, and 9 MPs from the parliament were arrested, all under the charge of aiding and abetting terrorism, praising terrorism, doing terrorist propaganda, this, that. There is not one single evidence that he did those crimes, not one. But he's in prison. His charges hasn't been even finalized. 2016. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, 2019, I think. So. Osman Kavala, a capitalist, an intellectual capitalist, a philanthropist. Some people, I don't know if that's right or not, but they would call him the Soros of Turkey. He supported progressive causes. His wife is a very well-known economist. She is the one that translated Polanyi, The Great Transformation, to Turkish. Very intellectual people. He supported arts. He won awards from archaeological societies and art societies. But because he supported 2013 uprising, Gezi uprising, he's been in prison again since 2019 or I keep forgetting. But he's gonna be in prison for life. For life. Entire European courts said this is BS. We want to see evidence. Okay, fine. If he did it, let's say there is no, and Turkey doesn't even bother providing evidence. He's going to be in prison till death. So we are. Well, I talked through my presentation. So there's, but you cannot do these with just. I'm repeating myself in breaking heads alone, but you need that under fascism. So the components that form the fascist dictatorship: businesses, the state, the gangs, and the Islamo-fascist side of this particular fascism, fascism de jure, I call it, the Islamo-fascism is the religious organization. The head of the religious organization is a very close friend of Erdogan's. Remember, in these type of countries and in these kind of regimes, everybody's paranoid. You have to have dependable people. That's why you have family members. Think about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. You have to have dependable friends, and them and only them can work with you. This book, Kartal İmam Hatipliler. There is a school, high school, Kartal İmam Hatipli. It's a religious school. It produces, the religious hojas, like priests and things in Christianity. Erdogan's son went to this school, and every single friend that he had there is now a very high official. So the head of the religious affairs department is a very close friend of Erdogan's. He rides the latest Mercedes cars. And he preaches to people that price hikes and, you know, this flashy way of life is not Islamic. Or the price hikes are from God. The Turkish lira, when we came here, it was like about, 20 or 18. Now it's 27. Just imagine if you are importing everything you have and it's bought by dollars and the dollar just goes to the sky. And the religious affairs tells people that it's Allah who makes the thing. And again, coming back to the education and the taking over of the minds of the people. The AKP government has been in the government for 22 years. You go and speak to people on the street. They say, oh, if the rents are going through the roof, it's the opposition. And you ask them, wait, how does opposition do this? For 22 years, it's AKP in the government. Oh, they must have something. They do things magically, and they do. Or it's the foreign forces. It's actually, it's funny. It's imperialism. The cars I mentioned about the religious affairs, using Mercedeses. The state banks are no different. Ziraat Bank is the biggest state bank ever. 3 guys in its board of directors have their own auto buying and selling business. So this bank gives them credit for buying cars. And they are all Audis and Volkswagen. In Turkey, by the way, I cannot afford to buy a car. Reason is that any car is about 3 times what it costs in the United States. We rented a Toyota car. It's used, it's not a showstopper. It's not, but you would have to have $45,000 to $50,000 to buy this Corolla, a couple of years old. Okay, so the bank gives these guys credit and to buy cars. With some of the credit they buy cars, the others, nobody knows what happened. So they buy the cars and they sell it to the bank. Hundreds of cars worth millions, hundreds of millions. Then the bank turns around and sells it, because they are now used cars, sells it to these same corporations that it bought it from. In one day, just in 24 hours, the bank and these corporations among themselves sell the same cars 3 times to 4 different corporations. 3 times in the span of 24 hours. And then what? A couple of months later, the bank comes in and buys the cars again from them. This is the Islamic morals. This is the moderate Islam. This is the Islamic way of doing capitalism. All these guys are preaching, have no illusion, all these guys are preaching morals and how high Islamic moral is. And that even the head of the religious affairs department says a Muslim will never steal from the government or from the state. No, but he changes his Mercedes every 6 months or and those Mercedes that he uses, bulletproof and so on, so for 400 to 600,000 US dollars. So this is the neo-colonial capitalism. But I am challenging: was there, or could there be a different way of doing it? No. People, for the first time, are experiencing hunger. And the religious Islamofascist government is asking them to just, take it because God is testing them. And some people say, why doesn't God ever test the Christians? Why are we always on the test? The rents have gone through the roof. Actually, it's a very interesting, that should be another session in the capitalism of Turkey. The prices are not usually determined in the marketplace. I have discussions with my friends from they subscribe to free market. And I tell them, yes, I agree. Let's do it. Let's just do free market for 3 days, and let's see if there is a Republic of Turkey still existing in the face of the earth. The inflation, 140% inflation, 100% inflation. What do you think will happen if you had a free market system? The rents are under control, the entire Turkey. You cannot raise the rent more than 25%. And the landlords try, and the renters fight back. There have been many, many killings. So people have enough, they just pull the gun and kill the landlord, or the landlord kills the renter to free his house so that he can make more money. Is this a stable society? Did Turkey have an option? Did Turkey have a chance to be different? I don't think so. This is the face of neocolonialism. This is the face of imperialism. And this is face of capitalism in the age of imperialism. Maybe we can go further in questions and answers, because I see Alan just came in. So that's an indication for me. So anyway, go ahead, Alan.
All right, thank you, Mehmet. We're going to take a short break. I'm going to make some announcements. When we come back, we'll take questions and comments from participants. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the reactions button on your Zoom window. And if you click on it, you can raise your hand, and we'll call on people in the order in which you raise your hand. So please go ahead and get your questions together and get ready to participate. In the meantime, let me just talk a little bit about upcoming program. Next week, we have a very, very special program. Speaking will be Mary Louise Patterson, who wrote a book called Letters from Langston, From the Harlem Renaissance to the Red Scare and Beyond. And Mary Louise will be speaking about her 40-plus year relationship with Langston Hughes. Her parents were very close friends with Langston Hughes. She'll be discussing her upbringing in the home of African-American communists and the relationship to Paul Robeson and many African-American artists, the Black Panthers, and more. So it should be a very lively and interesting session, valuable session. So please come back. If you want to receive email notifications for future sessions, you can sign up by going to our website at ICSSmarks.org. There will be a pop-up which you can put your name and your email in, and you'll receive every week a notice of what the upcoming week's program is and a link to join the program. If you wish to contact us, you can go to the contact section of our website at ICSSmarks.org and send us a message, and we will return your message as soon as we can. Past programs are also on our website, and a means to contribute to make a donation to the ICSS Sunday mornings at the Marxist Library. So lots you can do there. Check it out, ICSSmarx.org. Okay, so we have some hands that have come up, and I'm going to switch back over, and I'm going to start with Janet, and then Yusuf, and then Laura. So hold on one second. Let me just allow everybody to unmute yourself. Janet, if you would unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Mehmet, for your presentation. It's my understanding that the Republic of Turkey was founded as the successor state of the Ottoman Empire in 1923, after World War I, by the so-called Allied powers. Someone who I've begun to follow compared the messy breakup of the Soviet Union and unresolved conflicts within former Soviet territories that were left hanging because of the chaos, the resulting chaos, like Azerbaijan and Armenia, to what happened when the Ottoman Empire was broken apart, also chaotic. So current day Turkey is really a legacy of World War I. And some of the dynamics you are talking about, like with the Kurds, is also part of that legacy. Perhaps this would be for a topic for another session, but I'm wondering if you'd talk about this a little.
Thank you, Janet. Alan, look, there's a question on history, so here we go. You're absolutely right. There is a lot of discussion in Turkey whether, as claimed, Turkish Republic, as they call it, is a new, modern, secular, progressive country as the claim, or is it just a continuation of Ottoman Empire in a small sense, without the empire, of course? I tend to come close to the second opinion. Not much has, of course, certain things have changed, but not much. One thing from the perspective of the Kurds, as you mentioned, is actually things got worse. For the Armenians, things got worse. But this is not just because Turkey was formed. We have to understand that at the end of the 1800s, 1890s, and so on and so forth, a new development in the world was emerging. It's called nationalism. Ottomans were based on religious differences. There were, I mean, yes, there were Turks, there were Arabs, there were the Armenians, but that did not matter. What mattered was your religion. Actually, what the word nation, millet, in Ottoman meant was your religion. But with the new nationalism that came in at the end of Ottomans, the system changed into a race-based nationalism, not religious-based nationalism. But the arrow had already left the bow on establishing a brand new country with no differences that exist in it. Differences meaning religions. So in 1900s, 1915, and before that, even up to 1890s, the genocide happened. Why? Because Turks needed an ethnically pure country with no Christians, no Jews, no Assyrians, no this, no that. Oh, they were okay with other Muslim non-Turks like Kurds. It's very important. In the beginning, I mentioned about apartheid. And this is a secret that the Turkish government keeps, but it keeps on popping up here and there, and they kind of try to answer it. Still, Up to today, Turkish government keeps records of every single individual and their past. You get coded if you're a Jew. You get coded if you are an Armenian descendant or Armenian, a Kurd. So there are classifications. The first enemy, I'm using the word enemy of this country, are the Armenians, Greeks, Jews, the non-Muslims. They are coded. They are bad. Second tier are others who are Muslim but are non-Turks, like the Kurds. And this still continues. Look, by accident, there was a commission that came out. Interior Ministry, the Exterior Ministry, secret services, police departments, intelligence. They had a commission to track down and look at what these people were doing. These people meaning Armenian. So if you're an Armenian, you're a threat. You're already a threat to the country, and you are an enemy. And when this was found out and asked, they said, "Oh yeah, sorry, that's old. We're getting rid of it." So they changed the name. The participants changed, but it still continues. So yes, the Ottoman mentality continued. Look at the way that even the progressives kind of worship Mustafa Kemal. Mustafa Kemal was a positivist. He really personally did not care too much about the, being personal, being the king, the sultan. But the mentality continued in such a way that, oh, the sultan is gone. Who are going to worship? Oh, it's the Mustafa Kemal. Let's worship him. And now it's Erdogan. Let's worship him. So the change in the mentality to bring modern, progressive, questioning minds did never materialize. I'm embarrassed to say, but I'm gonna, say it. When Erdogan was campaigning a couple of years ago, a Muslim woman with the headscarf, I'm so conservative. It's a miracle that they left their home to, walk on the street. When a TV interviewer asked her, she said, "All I want to be is the hair in the ass of Erdogan. I want to be the hair of his ass." Just imagine a Muslim woman so closed, so conservative, expressing this. So does this show you a modern country? Does this show you what happens when you go to elections with people like this? When you go to elections with people who think that Erdogan invented the light bulb, people who believe that there were no hospitals in Turkey 20 years ago, who believe that the cars didn't exist in Turkey, roads didn't exist. AKP was able to get this into their minds. I would say study Trump and his followers. This is what you're going to see. But you're absolutely right. The fallout of the First World War and Ottomans gave us Turkey. And actually, you started something very interesting. The Allied established the modern Turkey. Yes. Actually, one of the generals that fought in the so-called Liberation War in 29 October 1973 wrote an article in then the Kemalist paper Milliyet, and there it just came out. I mean, you jump out of your chair because it contradicts everything the official history tells you. He said, if the British did not want us to win, and if the British had not convinced their partners to make us win, we would not have won the war. And that war was actually a very questionable war of liberation. Is that a war of liberation? The People we fight against, British, were supporting us. French were supporting us. Italians, we never shot one single bullet in our great war with the Italians, not one single bullet. So they were supporting us. Russia, the Soviet Union was supporting us. India was supporting us. The Muslim world was supporting us. The only enemy that was left were the Greeks. So we fought, or, we had a struggle with Greeks. We call it the Liberation War. And we continued the way that Ottomans were, but the liberation was from our own citizens, non-Muslims. Yes, we liberated Turkey from them. We got rid of them. Genocide. And the apartheid that still continues today, where we don't allow Armenians to become officers in the army. We don't allow Greeks to go high up in. As long as you give up your Kurdish identity to announce that you are a Turk, you cannot go up in the chain of positions. And so that's a textbook definition of apartheid. Thank you.
Okay, next is Yusuf, followed by Laura, and then Raj. So Yusuf, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I've slightly more nuanced view of what went on in between 1919 and 1923, but I'll skip that. So I remember who is the MP that was arrested? You say, was it the Workers' Party of Turkey MP? Because he was already actually in prison, but he should have been released because his conviction was still pending appeal, and
yes,
it was.
Yes, that's Barış Atalay. Yes, the same person we are talking about. But he, yes, all charges for him should have been dropped, and because he cannot be prosecuted, and the charges are still pending. He was not sentenced. He's not a convict. So all charges should have been dropped and everything. But his imprisonment continues.
Yeah. Okay.
From the Workers' Party. Yes.
Okay, next is Laura, followed by Raj, and then Richard, right? So Laura, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm curious, Mehmet, how do you stay safe? And maybe you've already told the story about how you came to the US and stuff like that. And I know this could be too long of an answer, but I'm just curious how you can move back and forth between here and Turkey and be okay.
Good question. No, there's always the big risk. I mean, 13,000 people are pending in court for insulting the president. And many of these are children. You go into social media, you just say, look at this guy. In the next month, his lawyers come in and get you, or the police come in and get you because you've just insulted the president of Turkey. No, under fascism, you don't have a security. Yes, things could go south very fast. They arrested a 70 or 65-year-old lady from just coming for vacation from Norway, I believe, Turkish. And because few years back, she had criticized something, I think it was in religious terms, so they arrested her. Just a few days ago, a European Parliament of Turkish origin came to Turkey, and she was at the airport arrested until European Union convened and said, hey, you know what? Nah. And she was let go. She flew right out. There is no guarantee. There is no security. No, unfortunately not. as anybody else's. A lot of my friends refuse to speak, refuse to go on the social media. There is during pandemic, people were reporting, putting pictures of hospitals where people were dying on the floor, and they were all caught because there is a law that says spreading lies. The government says today only 20 people died. The pictures come in double what the government said. And if you say that, you are spreading lies and you are inciting people and you are insulting the beliefs of the people. Maybe you are a terrorist. Maybe you are working with a terrorist organization. Are you doing terrorist propaganda? Who told you these? Where'd you get this information? So somebody is behind you that is pushing you to spread the terrorist propaganda. No, this is it. This is it. The risk is there. Thank you.
Okay, next is Raj, followed by Richard Wright, and then Eugene. So Raj, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mehmet, thanks for the presentation. Very informative about what's going on in Turkey. I see a lot of similar elements emerging of the same thing in India now. Okay, but that wasn't the case before 2014, not so much. Okay, they had laws that would arrest you and put you in prison for 6 months or a year, kind of detention and all that. That goes back a long time, but now it is yet another scale. Some of the things like opposition members, pretty prominent members, they will put up the enforcement directorate and so forth. But the question I have for you is, in India, I see the present government is trying to develop some local monopolist in India that is of international scale. They're trying to do that, and they're basically destroying what I would call the natural economy. India had a lot of natural economy, which means very small, petit bourgeois economy. People selling their vegetables and they bring to the city from outside and selling it, giving cash, and basically survival kind of thing. So now they're trying to actually destroy that economy to build this monopoly capitalism, which is tied with monopoly capitalism of the world. So a similar pattern is emerging, but in India, this is since the new economic policy that brought neoliberalism into India because they wanted to compete with China, they had difficulty with their own economy, so forth. So is in Turkey, is the state trying to develop a Turkish monopoly capitalism? And if not, how do they expect to survive? After all, the masses will eventually turn around and then everybody will be gone. I mean, they can't rule by, and by the way, the comment about not by force of arms alone, by ideology of Islam and other things that the people's minds are controlled, that's true also, you can say about India and the United States. After all, here people still believe a lot of things about US democracy, which no longer holds. Anyway, your response. Thank you.
A very good question, Raj. Actually, I've been trying to ask this very same question from a different angle, though. The first question I would bring up in following up is there a Turkish monopoly capitalism, or is it being developed? Yes, but then no. First of all, yes, because even before the AKP government and this change that happened, very significant change happened in 1980. It was the implementation of IMF programs. And neoliberalism was applied. In order to apply what had been passed and what was in the program, Turkey needed a counter-revolution, a military coup. And the leaders then openly said that we cannot apply this economic policy without a military program. So Turkey entered in full force. It was tied to the monopoly capitalism of the world, and it fully integrated into it in 1980. Now, this brings up a theoretical question, first of all. Should or could the neo-colonial countries develop a monopoly capital that is independent of imperialist relationships or bonds? That's a good question to debate, and I think we had a couple of debates about it myself, with you. So Turkey had that monopoly capital strata in the bourgeoisie, but with AKP, what changed is that, again, this personal relationships, the way that you're going to conduct business is only with people you know. That's not the marketplace. That's the AKP's mentality that it brought into the fore. What happened was that AKP preferred the lumpen bourgeoisie, lumpen bourgeoisie, that was in the, like you said, local, in small towns, in villages. So AKP allowed them to compete with the monopoly capitalists that were fully in charge. That caused friction. That did cause friction. But the monopoly capitalists who were against AKP and who are still, sometimes against AKP, but they love the way that the system works for them. It was Erdogan who stood up and addressed the monopoly capitalist strata. He said, there are this strike in your factory and that strike in your factory. Hey, we came here to prevent the strikes. We're not going to allow strikes by the workers. Hey, that was music to the ears of the monopoly capitalists. But then came the new ones, the lumpen bourgeoisie. This was, many sociologists have, interpreted this as the vengeance of the illiterate. These people are crass. These people are like if you were to go to Florida, to a small town and get their drug dealer, okay? The small town drug dealer, and suddenly make him a billionaire in New York. What would you expect? In one of the leaders of that five, do you remember, I was talking about the Gang of Five, the five corporations around Erdogan that gets like 98% of all government projects. The owner of one of those corporations, a dear friend of Erdogan's, on the phone, recorded, is saying, I will F the P of this people, Turkish people. I will F the P of, the letter P. There's more to it. This is the type of capitalist we are talking about. He has become a multi-billionaire, dollar billionaire from this land. But this is the way they look at the people. Do you remember Osman Kavala? I talked about the philanthropist, capitalist, intellectual, and so on and so forth. He represents actually the monopoly capitalists. They want a Turkey that is modern, that's Kemalist, that is playing in the world and everything. And their bread and butter relies on their monopoly capital and their relationship to imperialism. Yes, the AKP wants them and protects them, as well as the Muslim businesses. But it would be wrong, and it would be, it would be wrong to assume that this monopoly capitalist would try to carve out a place in the world just like the monopoly capitalists of the imperialists to themselves. They know they are second tier. They know they are dependent. They know they look at handouts of the world's monopoly capitalists to allow them to work in their country. They're not fools. They're not stupid. They know that the minute they lose the relationship of imperialist corporations that are above them and they control them, if they lose that relationship, they are finished. Look at Turkey's flirting with Russia. Turkey understands that a new world is being built and new masters, look, I'm not saying equal, masters are emerging in the world. So it immediately flirts with Russia, flirts with China. But when the United States whistles, it's right back with the leash at the foot of the United States, begging Papa to forgive him. That defines the relationship of the business people in Turkey. They do have monopolies actually in Turkey. You're absolutely right. Those local economies are collapsed with the prices today. They used to sell in the markets, bazaars. They used to come with their tomatoes from their fields. Doesn't work anymore. The way even with the high prices they sell, they can't even cover the cost of their seeds. People are saying, I had enough. I'm giving up. This is it. Finished. I have videos of hazelnut growers. Turkey is a monopoly in the world on hazelnuts. The prices were announced a couple of weeks ago. So the growers of hazelnut trees have their saws in their hands. They are cutting down trees one after other. They said, F this, it's finished. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. It's better that I don't work rather than deal with all this and end up being in debt after a year's worth of work, and this is not going to happen. So it's collapsed, and the monopolies are taking over. Look at, there are like 3 chain markets that are everywhere in every village, and they are all closely tied to the government, closely tied to the AKP government. They are taking over everything, yes. But let's remember that they themselves, in turn, are dependent on the imperialist relationships. I think Russia showed a very interesting test, experiment. When these the things came from United States that they cannot sell, they cannot use dollar, and everybody expected them to collapse. But Russia was able to, the reasons we can talk about, break that. But is Turkey, is India, neocolonial countries, will they be able to show the same performance that Russia did? Maybe Russia had too much natural resources. Yes, it's a power, it's a force. But what will Turkey do if the same things were done to Venezuela, to Turkey? So the discussion of the Turkish monopoly capital, yes, of course, but only very locally, and without forgetting that they themselves are very much, they owe their existence to the dependency on imperialism. Thank you.
Mehmet, there's a question in the chat from Eric. I think it's related to the current question, so I'm going to ask that. It says, what do you mean by, quote, allowed the minor capitalists to compete? I don't know if that's clear to you, but if you would address that, then we'll go back to the queue, because I think it's related to what you were just
good
talking
question.
about.
Again, before 1980s, and especially in, I should say, before AKP, that monopoly capitalists had the country in their hands. They supported the military coup. They supported the, any attacks. They supported the fascist National Action Party, the grave wolves, the assassinations, everything. So it was all fine. Until AKP came and something changed. It's a significant change. What I call, and many sociologists call, is the vengeance of the illiterate. Those guys were small-time nothings. You know, you have a small, stupid furniture store in a village somewhere. Who are you? You're nothing. But AKP allowed these people to grow, flourish, and know very well who they owe to for their new lifestyle. Today, if you come to Turkey, in places you never expect, you see Land Rovers, you see Audi A8s driven by Muslim women who are clothed, and and these women go to bridal showers with champagnes that are not alcoholic, and they bring belly dancers, and while they carry $50,000 Louis Vuitton handbags. That is what AKP allowed them to do, with one point saying that just remember who you owe this to. You were nothing, I brought you here. And this vengeance of illiterate has gone to such levels that it is destroying the country. I talked a little bit about education, but now those people, you should see the news. Nearly every day there is a news that some people raided the local hospital and beat the S out of a doctor, a nurse, or so on and so forth, because they believe that they know everything, although they are the most illiterate, the most backward religious bigots. But they believe that they have the full knowledge of the world, and now they're on top. Actually, I'm going to give the example of this again, a closed, with headscarf woman, Muslim woman coming on TV. She's so gleeful. She's so happy. She says, look at us now. We even beat up doctors. She's so happy for being able to beat up the doctors now. This is where they came to. I read a writing academician, again, a closed Muslim women academician. She said that somebody had criticized her paper, and she says, "Well, I thought about calling the police to have them beat up the critic," and it's so normal. This is their lifestyle. This is their life. If anybody looks, bad at you, you beat the S out of them, or you kill them, or you destroy them. And then you go to bridal showers with clothed women having belly dancers dancing with your Rolls Royce or your, Land Rover or Audi 8 car. This is where the country has come to. And thousands of doctors are leaving Turkey. They don't want to work in Turkey anymore. And when they announced that how many doctors have applied to go to work outside the country, Erdogan said, let them go if they want to. And again, Erdogan's corporations are building hospital after hospital after hospital with no doctors in it, with no equipment in it. You go to this beautiful, modern, huge hospital, you can't find a doctor. You can't get an appointment. If you are having a heart attack, they tell you 3 months from now, come back. This is where this capitalism has come to. And that is what, those little guys are now that 5 corporations that are building the hospitals, they are building the roads, they build bridges. All those bridges are the same as the airports that I mentioned. The government gives the guarantee that, I'm making this up, 1 million cars will pass over this bridge. If not, then the government pays the corporation for the lost passengers. And the prices are so high, nobody can use those bridges. So the government pays. Japanese, Chinese, American, European corporations that are managing it, and the Turkish construction firms close to the government, close to Erdogan, that have built it. This is not your typical capitalism that Marx mentions in The Capital. This is open looting. This is the age of imperialism. So these Muslim businesses who have been nothing are now in the cities and everywhere competing with the traditional monopoly capitalists that existed before them. This is a significant change. So I hope I have answered that question.
Okay, next is Richard, Jean, Norma, and then Hisham.
Actually,
Richard,
I was next.
Norma, if you would please
What
be
happened?
patient. I'm trying to run the meeting. It's very hard to track everything going on. So go ahead. Richard.
Mehmet, I kind of wanted to address Eric's question real quick. And one reason that the big capitalists will allow little capitalists to function is because in the process, in their production process, they either maybe come up with ways that are more efficient of producing something, thereby making it more profitable, or they may in fact come up with a totally new innovation, in which case, it gives the big capitalists a chance to buy them up and further their profits again. So that's partly why the big capitalists, I think, are my opinion of why they would allow the little capitalists to surf. While I was listening to your presentation, Mehmet, the question that crossed my mind is if you've got all these people being thrown into jail, or being sanctioned, or being excommunicated, who's left to have a revolution? One, and the other thing that crossed my mind is, does this mean that a revolution a revolution in Turkey, does this mean that it's going to have to come from without, either from, say, Russia, or heaven forbid, from the United States or the Western Industrial?
What do you talk about?
I'm sorry, but in any case, that was a couple of questions that crossed my mind during your talk, and I'll shut up. Thank you.
Thank you. You brought very good points, but on the first point, I think you are thinking with a mindset that has seen capitalism in a metropolitan country like US, like Germany. You are absolutely right. That's what they do. I mean, a small guy in his garage comes up with a computer that the bigger ones didn't have, the skills or whatever to develop. But in Turkey, it didn't happen that way. Turkey is a neocolonial country. Nobody is thinking about production. Nobody wants to do production. I mean, even the big guys in the metropolitan countries are now, why is it moving to China? The only reason why, or two reasons, is one is, like I said, the paranoia of Erdogan in establishing his Islamic rule and controlling his section of the bourgeoisie through religion and through, I don't know, family ties or feudal ties. Let me say it that way, feudal ties. There's another aspect that you came to, but the other aspect is that completely the opposite of what you're saying is that these small town Muslim bourgeoisie are brutal. They don't negotiate with the I don't know, the workers' unions or anything. They take their guns and go. They take their guns and they beat the crap out of them. They have no respect to human rights, even for show. Even for show. That's not their lifestyle. Like I said, they are gleefully proud that they now can beat doctors up in hospitals. And this actually raises the productivity. They have children working. They have women, especially Syrian women working. And many times they rape these women. They use them as sex slaves. They want their children to come in and work as well, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. They don't have the culture of metropolitan capitalism. The only thing is money. Do the money and just get the money and leave. I gave the example of like Florida drug dealer. Do you think that a Florida small town drug dealer, thug, is going to come to the town and establish a production system, producing shoes? This is the mentality that they have. And their brutality has helped the system go worse. Remember barbarism? That's what we are. You should see the stories, I'm not going to repeat here, of the Syrian people who were no security, they don't pay their taxes, they don't pay their wages for 3 months, 4 months, and then they throw them out. This was also rampant in the United States against the Mexican workers, illegal so-called workers, that they would be exploited to the very full. This is what's going on in Turkey right now. The other one, who's going to do the revolution? Very good question. But unless a working class party that can organize and that can at least bring forth the potential, look, we're not saying the revolutionary features of workers, we're saying potential revolutionary or progressive side of workers. Many workers they voted for the AKP. They're hungry. They are hungry. And they say Erdogan did everything he can. It's the foreign forces and the opposition that destroys us. Look, the earthquake area. The opposition leader said, you lost your houses, 3 million houses gone. It is the task of the state, of the government, to build your homes free. Free. We're gonna, this was before the election. He said, free. We're gonna give you free housing, free buildings. We're gonna build them and give it to you. The government said, no way. We are going to give you a mortgage. You will have to pay for your home that we are gonna build for you. We're gonna build, you're gonna be in debt, and you're gonna pay for it. Opposition said, no way, free house. Do you know who won in those areas? The government. Those who say, I'll make you pay for it. This is Islamofascism. You look at the leader as if he's been sent from God, and whatever he says is true. There couldn't be any other alternative. What free housing? Some of them are, now saying the opposition lost in the elections. Lost 22 years of AKP government. They say, see, they promised us free homes. Why aren't they giving us the free homes now? They're in opposition. You can't get this across to them that they're in opposition. So anyway, so who's going to do the
we only
revolution?
have about 10 minutes left. I'm
Sorry,
going to
sorry,
try
sorry.
to get to everybody. Jean, Norma, Hisham. So please try to keep your questions down to a couple minutes. So Jean, please go ahead, unmute.
I'm unmuted, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks, Mehmet. It's great to hear from you. And I kind of lead a sheltered life here in Oakland, but I worry about you, like Laura. I don't know how you survive in a situation like that, and hope you'll come back to the Bay Area soon, where at least you'll be safe. We have our corrupt cops here, like in Antioch and elsewhere, but usually they end up in jail. And so there's some, things that are better here. But the question I have is, Turkey is geographically very central. And I'm wondering about one thing you didn't mention was multipolarity. We're moving into a multipolar world where US imperialism can no longer call the shots. And you have other countries, not only Russia, but also China, exerting a very strong influence in making peace, where imperialism has been stirring things up and where they're improving people's lives, where imperialism always pushes lives down. And China has done so much of this. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts on this, on multipolarity, and particularly the role of China in I know they've brought peace to the Middle East between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And are they active at all in what's going on in Turkey? So thank you. But again, good to see you.
Nice to see you too, Gene. Good question. First of all, yes, the multipolarity is apparent, and Turkey is playing its cards accordingly. But are others taking Turkey seriously? Because I believe they believe how dependent Turkey is to imperialism, I think they're taking Turkey with a grain of salt. Turkey is approaching Russia, no doubt about it. I mean, in the last 10 days, Erdogan has been begging Putin to please, let's sit down and talk. And Putin keeps on, delaying it. Let's remember the scandal that happened when Erdogan visited Russia. Putin had Erdogan and his entourage come to the door, and they did not open the doors for like 3-4 minutes. They just stood there not knowing what to do, looking at each other, embarrassed. No doors are opening. So finally the doors were opened and Turkey, the Erdogan was called in. Turkey has shown, yes, it is flirting with the multipolar forces that are emerging, but it's only a flirt. Turkey is dependent, meaning what? Finally, the European and United States, I think, given up on Erdogan because he has done his shelf life. He's now a liability. And I believe that if an opposition that has the charisma as Erdogan emerges, they will get rid of him very quickly. But until then, and Erdogan knows this, and so he doesn't allow like an alternative to come up. So Erdogan is playing the cards, saying that you also need me, because look at it in Iraq, in Syria, Turkey. In most cases, except for the Kurds, Turkey is playing alongside the United States. Libya attack was organized from Turkey. It was coordinated from Turkey. And Turkey was instrumental in bringing the Libyan army's weapons across the sea to the ISIS and Al-Qaeda insurgents in Iraq and Syria. Who's going to do this for the United States? And look at it, Turkey bought the S-400 defense system from Russia. Oh, it's a big deal. The NATO said, hey, how can you? Well, Russia did not give the missiles. It just gave them empty barrels, empty barrels sitting. Russia knows. China is another. Turkey knows that China is an emerging power as well. But look at the number one issue inside Turkey, internally, very important, internally, the Uyghurs in China. Turkey, I mean, you should see the people dying and crying and having fits all over the floor about what's going on against the poor old Turkish Uyghurs, and they are our brothers and this and that. So about 30 countries came together to write and condemnation of China against the Turks, Uyghur Turks. Turkey did not sign it. Turkey is kind of like, but outside, not internal. Externally, yeah, we know you're a good guy, and we'd like to expand the Silk Road and everything. So that's the way. It's pragmatism. Look, only few months ago, United Arab Emirates was the #1 enemy of Turkey. No kidding. United Arab Emirates was a terrorist state, not my word, Erdogan's word. Terrorist state. It had done the internal coup, 2016, July 15 coup. It said the United Arab Emirates was behind the coup against me. What happened? He just packed his bags and went to United Arab Emirates to beg for few $billion. He got them, but he won't say what he gave them. He is now flirting Assad in Syria. What happened? He was nearly swearing at Assad. He was calling him derogatorily, Assad. Actually, before this event, Assad used to come to Turkey and stay at Erdogan's house guest. They were this close. And then when United States and Syria went to war, or United States invaded Syria, suddenly Assad became Assad, and he became the #1 terrorist. And Turkey now invades Iraq, Turkey invades Syria, and in some places they go head-to-head with Russia. Because Turkey is acting, except for the Kurdish issue, acting as the middleman of the United States. So Turkey is trying to find a way of finding new masters, not of finding a place for itself, finding new masters. That's the relationship. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna just try to wrap up pretty soon. Norma, did you have a question?
Did anybody here have a question?
Okay, hang on. Let me get Hisham, and you can collect your thoughts. Okay.
No,
Hisham,
I
you've
have
been
my
patient.
thoughts. I have my thoughts. If you
Okay,
let me
let's
say
go
it.
ahead. Hisham has his hand up. Let me go ahead and get him in.
Yeah, I had my hand up, but it got taken down.
Okay, should I ask?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, my question is like, only recently in the social media, there is reports about a huge surge in Turkey against Syrian Muslims and generally Arabs. So is it like who's doing this? Is it like the Islamic fascism or the Kemalist side of the equation in Turkey? And what is behind it? And is it going to succeed in, for example, bringing back the Syrians back to Syria, or what's happening here? That's my first question. My second question is, the situation described in Turkey is very similar, if not identical, to what's happening in Egypt, maybe Jordan, and also the West Bank. Do you think there is an Israeli hand in all of this? Thank you.
Very good question. I mean, I never had time to come to even the biggest problem in Turkey of the Syrian refugees, not only Syrian, by the way, Pakistani, Afghani, Iraqi, and some from African countries. Let's be clear. Let's be very clear. Turkey was established as an apartheid regime based on racism. Turkey, look, there are racisms where you don't realize that the people are racist. Like if you were to go to south states in the United States, and there is no blacks around, it's all whites and everything. They are wonderful people. They have the hospitality, they have this and that, and they, welcome you, and the cooking and the dancing and everything. Until a black person appears. This was the apartheid regime of Turkey. Turkey was a monolithic, or they claimed to, except for the Kurds, of course, a monolithic country with that had one flag, one leader, one religion, one language, one country. That's it. Everything one, single, nothing else. Suddenly, the Syrian refugees start to show up. So the racism that had been dominant, that had been dormant, started to show up. And this came in at the time when the economic crisis was hitting hard on people. And first of all, it was just cultural. And then Erdogan used this, the refugees as a chip against Europe to get money. He said, look, I'll open the borders. I'll send millions. I think there are 13 million refugees in Turkey, 13 million. I'll send them over to you. You deal with them. Or I keep them here. You pay me. And the European Union started paying Turkey. Please don't send them. Here's the money. Just keep it. Do whatever. Don't send them. That's fine for Erdogan, because with the Syrian refugees came in a lot of ISIS fighters, Al-Qaeda fighters, who Erdogan uses as needed. They have been involved in several big massacres that killed the progressives. But on the other side, as you have mentioned, is the society is in a shock. First of all, there's economic problems and people can't get jobs and you can't send their kids to school. There's no hospital. There's no this. Suddenly, these Syrians getting paid through the government of Turkey, but paid by European Union, they can go to hospitals. They can buy bread. They can this, that. Turks started to bring up that ugly racism that this country was built on. Syrians are now they're responsible for anything, everything that happens in this country, unfortunately. It has come to such a point where, before coming there, it is mostly the Kemalists who are leading the animosity against the refugees, racist animosity, because again, one flag, one country, one this and that, and let's remember that this country was established by rejecting the East and adopting the West. And Arabs represent the East in Turkish mind. Not only that, but in the First World War, when Turkey lost its land, the Arab land, and its subjects, the Arabs, Turks never forgave that. Turks don't believe that anybody else but the Turks could give a liberation war, could want freedom, could have independence, because they were our subjects, and they're our subjects, they will stay. Because they got their independence because they are the tools of imperial, they are the tools of British, English. And now suddenly you see those faces in Turkey. Huge social crisis. Erdogan, not because of his anti-racist position, but because he was using them, is defending them as saying, look, we are the good neighbor and they're in bad times, we need to help them. He's making money off of them. But now the crisis has come to such a point that the people want the Syrians out so much that even the AKP government is saying, well, now it's time for them to go. Turkey promises to build houses for Syrians in Syria to send them back. And that's the plan that the government has. Will they put it into use? I don't know. I think it will depend on how much racism will lift up. And so every day in Istanbul, in neighborhoods, there are lynchings, guys, lynchings. Turkish gangs follow and attack the Syrian gangs or otherwise. And so, it's not only in Istanbul. You go to northeast, all those the cities Turks claim that have been taken by Arabs. This is the Arabification. And now, together with Erdogan's Islamic tendencies and the Arabs, they're saying, yeah, this is all over with. Arabs have come and taken over our country. We are second-rate citizens in our own country. We can't even speak Turkish. It's all Arabic, this and that and this and that. But this has culminated in an unbelievable racist attacks, and the government has to solve it this way or that way. Otherwise, government itself will be in trouble, because even the AKP members don't buy the good neighbor and we'll help them out and this and that. And they exploit the Arabs, they exploit the Afghanis to the very last extent, having them work free, and they, rapes and everything. I'm getting, but it's brutal. So I believe that government has to solve it somehow. I don't know if they will send it back.
Okay, we're out of time now. I just want to remind everybody about next week. Mary Louise Patterson will be speaking. Should be a very good session. Want to urge everybody to stop by and participate. You can sign up at ICSSmarks.org, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Mehmet, so much for your talk and for the Q&A. So we look forward to seeing you again
everybody
soon.
for participating. Thank you.
Okay.
Institute for the Critical Study of Society at the Nebel Proctor Marxist Library receives no corporate funding, nor do we have any paid staff. We rely on the support of working class folks that share our commitment to the socialist legacy of Karl Marx. We continue to need funds to meet necessary expenses, since we can no longer pass the hat at our in-person forums. Please send contributions to our treasurer, either online via PayPal or by check. The PayPal ID is ICSS Sunday, SUNDAY, at yahoo.com. And the name is Richard Fallenbaum. And checks may be made out to Richard Fallenbaum and sent to him at 1225 Nielsen Street, Berkeley, California, 94706. Fallenbaum is spelled Fallenbaum. To donate directly to the Marxist Library, send a check to the Nebel Proctor Marxist Library at 6501 Telegraph Avenue, Oakland, California, 94609, or directly or donate online at www.paypal.me/npml. For information, write to npml at marxistlibr.org, and the website is marxistlibr.org.